Well, would you look at that? It's been about a month since I started the Draw a Box course, and as promised, I've got some progress to show you, so let's take a look. I promised that I would show you every single time that I put pen to paper over the course of this month, no matter how much I might want to hide the results. And I'm gonna make good on that promise. Oh boy. These first 2 pages you're looking at are the very first assignments in the course. There's nothing too much to say about these. They're just about training you to start drawing from the shoulder and make, confident, smooth strokes. You keep drawing over the same line 8 or so times to try and develop a control as you do this. And I feel like there's very little to be said positively or negatively about these, but you can definitely see some where the strokes stay tighter together than others. I kind of fooled myself into thinking that I'd be better at this than I actually was, because I'd practiced this a few times with a ballpoint pen before my fine liners came in the mail and I officially started the course. The problem is that ballpoint pens leave much more of a groove in the paper when you use them, especially when you're using an index card. And so it seemed like I'd be able to really match the previous lines. I was like, oh man, this followed exactly. But it turns out it was just the pen following the groove I had made the first time. So when I finally did it with a fine liner, I was expecting something a lot tighter than what I got. Alright, so this is the next exercise, which is part of a bunch that I did that first night. So in this one, you put down 2 dots and you try and smoothly go from one to the other in one stroke from the shoulder. And you're supposed to do lines of various lengths, and you can definitely see that this was still a struggle for me at this point, both in getting the line as straight and confident as I'd like it, as well as just actually hitting the target. Now, this is actually a page that gives me some joy to look at now, because I know that while I'm still very far from perfect, I've gotten a lot better than this, as you'll see as we go forward. I remember being pretty proud of some of these lines as I was doing them, though, and now I can't find a single one that I'd actually be satisfied with, so I guess that's progress. The last exercise of that first night is basically the same thing, but with a slightly different format. So you put down 4 arbitrary dots and then connect them in a plane. Then you add in the diagonals and the lines that bisect the sides. The circles inside are actually part of another exercise that I did a couple of days later. I'm going to kind of skip past this one because I think that all I have to say is basically what I was just saying about the last page, but you can see how this exercise starts planting the seeds of, a bunch of lines instead becoming a 3-dimensional shape in your head. You can see oh, those aren't lines, this is a plane at this angle, or, whatever. Okay, so Draw a Box has this thing called the 50% rule, where ideally you're spending just as much time on your own drawings as you are doing exercises. These are going to be some of the pages that I want to show you the least. Now, I always feel like when I'm doing these drawings for pleasure, it's only half for pleasure, because I can't shut out the part of my brain that feels like it's being put in an unfair situation. I'm trying to draw things using techniques I haven't learned and skills I don't yet have, and that's kind of the point. Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and, reaching. Alright, I have to take a moment to talk about this rock for a second. So part of what inspired me to do this course was actually a YouTube channel called MapCrow. It's a fantastic channel all about RPGs and artwork, and I'm really happy to see it taking off, but there was one video in particular where he was showing how to draw, rocks or chunks of ice, things of that nature. And so when you watch somebody that has, years of experience and actual drawing talent doing something, they make it look so simple. They're explaining what they're doing and it seems so obvious. You're like, oh, of course, you just add this little line here and a little shading to this and it'll define the shape. It's all so clear. I could do that. So it had been a few days since I had watched the video at the time that I made this drawing, and I decided, my time to take a crack at this. I got this. Surely I had learned how to do something. Oh, God, no. In fairness to myself, I think if I had more recently watched the video and had been watching, with the intent to learn rather than just be entertained by watching the process, maybe I could have had some slightly closer results. But, if this course is about making ugly drawings, then at the very least, I guess I finally got something to put up on the fridge. Because, yeah. Quick note, I actually really like how this magical staff turned out. Still enjoy that one. Back to exercises. So these 2 pages are about making ellipses of different sizes and angles that ideally touch the top and bottom lines of their little confinement area. Then you fill in any gaps that are left over with some smaller circles. And I remember really enjoying this process, actually, especially trying to find like all the little spots left over where I could cram in another circle. This is the first exercise they have you do that involves using a ruler, and I really do think that, as the course suggests, like really taking your time to just slowly and methodically make this grid, it's really worthwhile. It helps get you in this sort of zen-like state before you get started just scribbling a bunch of circles. Like it puts you in the right state of mind to just be ready to take on the assignment carefully and maybe learn something with it. Now, you can see that my lines are starting to get a little bit more confident here too compared to before. The lines being circles this time, of course, but like they're a little bit smoother. They're a little bit more solid. So I needed one more page of the, put down 4 dots, make a plane, and then put a circle inside of it. So this came after everything you've seen before, and it's a subtle difference, but if you look, you can see that, like, starting to get a little bit more comfortable making the lines actually connect the 2 points, though when you look at them closely, there's still a lot of them that have a little bit more curve to them than I'd like this one in particular. One thing I remember, though, is that this was the page where it finally clicked for me as far as, like, how to make a straight line from my shoulder and get it where I wanted. It happened midway through working on this page. So if you look at the boxes at the top, you'll see, like, they're okay. But as you go farther down the page, you start getting ones that look more like this one. And this one. Much straighter lines that are bang on, like, going right to that dot. This is the first time that I started to feel really, like, actually proud of my development. And, like, I remember I was so excited that night. I just wanted to keep making lines because they kept heading, like, to the exact place where I wanted them to. I still don't exactly get it perfectly all the time, especially when, I'm brushing or if I'm drawing on a non-ideal, like, not perfectly smooth surface. But, like, this page is a big breakthrough moment for me. Here's another sketch page. Again, there's not really a lot I have to say about it other than it's continuing to be a lot of experimentation with things that I haven't explicitly been taught yet. And, like, I try and incorporate at least a little bit of what I've learned. Like, that weird syringe / turkey baster at the top, that was some kind of attempt at making a drawing that made use of practicing all those ellipses that I had just been doing. And so that wall grid, that was another thing taken straight from my desire to be doing, like, what I had seen on MapCrow. He did a video on making dungeon tiles and, like, how he goes about approaching that for, drawing RPG maps. And this time I think my result was at least closer to what I had in mind. So, it's a step up, certainly from the boulder I tried to make. That bleeding horn thing was a drawing where, like, basically I took something really simple and I just kept embellishing it. Like, when I started out, it was just this one single curvy line. And then I decided to complicate it by adding some bridges to it, and then I turned the front of it into some kind of an opening with, like a Nerf-like lip to it. I'm not entirely sure what it was supposed to be. I was just kind of messing around. Like, I don't know exactly what's going on with this thing. And I remember the reason why it's got blood coming out of it was it's covering up some kind of mistake. I can't remember what it was anymore, but that's why it's, like, bleeding from an awkward position. It's like, why would there be blood trickling there? It's because there was some mistake that I was like, I'll just cover this up with just a bunch of, just color it all black. I like this thumbtack. It's a really simple shape, but like I have trouble fully visualizing things and just drawing straight from memory. And so the thumbtack was my attempt to try and just, like, keep it simple, but just see how well I could approximate something, just an object, just straight from memory. And, like, I'm pretty happy with the results there. Like, I think it did the job. So I actually submitted all of these assignments for the, like, official feedback critique that you can get through Drawbox, and this is one that got called out as an area where I could probably use a little bit more practice moving forward. So the idea here is that you're trying to make circles that fit between the two curves, but as you get farther from the middle, they get wider and wider. Ideally, though, that straight line going down the center of the curves is supposed to cut the circle, like, right in half, make it symmetrical. So like, this one is a decent example of what it should be like, but a lot of the ones on this page, they're not really aligned quite right. So you get a lot of results like this, or this. Like, you can see the line runs through them at, like, a bit of an angle. So, feedback noted, and I will be incorporating this as a warm-up into my exercises moving forward. As a quick side note, though, I actually forgot that you were supposed to warm up for like 15 minutes before doing these homework assignments. They suggest, take some old assignments, put them into a pool, and like choose some to do like a little bit of to just get yourself warmed up before doing anything new. I totally forgot to do that for most of this course. Up until this point, I don't think it really bit me too much, but there's going to be an assignment coming up soon where I think the warm-up time really would have helped out. So this assignment was pretty simple. It's all done with rulers, so there's really only so much you can mess it up as long as you understand what you're supposed to be doing. So as a result, it winds up looking really nice, if a little bit cluttered. Like, this is what boxes can look like when they're drawn correctly. Keep it in mind, okay? Hold this image in your mind because it's going to come up again, and they're not going to be done with rulers, and they might look a little bit different. So as you can see, my sketches tend to be inspired by something I was just working on in the assignment, hence the idea of drawing king dice back there. I had just had an assignment about drawing boxes. I look back in the room and I see that king dice head right there. 2 and 2 go together. So clearly this one was not drawn with a ruler, perfectly following the rules of perspective, but it's not a completely terrible box. Trust me, there are going to be some utterly abysmal looking boxes in the future. This one's not so bad. So, this is another drawing that I really wish I could pretend just didn't exist and that I didn't have to show you. Like, because I drew it on an index card, I came, like, really close to just throwing it out and being like, nope, that one doesn't count. My official drawings are on computer paper, index card drawings, they don't count. I don't have to show it to you. But it totally counts. So, that thought bubble was my defense mechanism, making it clear that, yes, I am aware of that particular issue with the drawing. There's a reason his face looks so sad. Oh, and looking at the drawing, I just now noticed that clearly I changed my mind about where one of the corners of the box should be. Do you see that? Like, I tried to kind of like sneak in an altered line there. Whoops. Now, if you ignore that I had no idea how to adequately make the water or the waves in this drawing, I'm actually pretty happy with it, especially the leaves on the palm tree. This is one that I can share without too much in the way of embarrassment, though good lord did it use up a lot of ink in my pen. There are just so many lines. Now, not that I want to focus on the water, but you can see that a lot of the time when I'm doing these kind of sketches, because they're experiments, I'll sometimes change the way that I approach something midway through and just see like, I'm not committed to doing it this way. Let's see how it might look if I do it this way instead. So like the lines of the water on the left side, they're a lot more chaotic and just like they switch directions more frequently. But then on the right side, I do a lot more like keeping things flowing in the same direction for longer periods of time. And ultimately, I like the cleaner look on the right, which is why I clearly stuck with it for a lot more of the drawing once I started it. Okay. Remember when I showed you what boxes are supposed to look like? Here, I'll give you a quick reminder. So, here's this page from before where I draw boxes with a ruler and perfectly follow, like this is prospectively how a box should look. Well, this next assignment that I'm about to show you, it didn't let me use a ruler. I just had to kind of like, not guess exactly because there's rules to it, but like, I had to use my best judgment on where to place the lines. And, well, it turned out a little bit differently. So, here we go. This was the first time in the course that I felt something that was actually, like, discouraging. So, after you draw the boxes as best as you can, you then take a ruler and you extend the lines to see how accurately you place them. Like, how close do they come to lining up with the vanishing point on the page? I remember feeling like this was just so cruel. Like, I understood the value of what I was doing. Like, obviously, the whole point is to see, to get better. It's not about making fun of you. It's just, here's how you did, here's where you need to improve. But even understanding all of that, when you see just how far off so many of your lines are, especially when you're like still on the table, you can see the other page that you did with the rulers, like here's these wonderful looking boxes, and then here are mine now. Like, it felt pretty crappy. However, here's my very next attempt at this exercise the very next day. This flipped the script from feeling very discouraging to feeling very encouraging, because so you can see just how much closer the lines had gotten to where they're supposed to go. Like, so much improvement had happened just the very next time I tried to do it. So, you know, there were a lot more of these boxes with varying results. Some are closer than others. Oh, and there's the sketch based on something from an RPG system. We're just going to skip past it. Technically, I did at least show it. Okay, we're moving on. All right, here's one more full page of the boxes with my own, guess at perspective. The biggest issue with it is just how shaky a lot of these lines get. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. Reason number one is that, as I mentioned before, I wasn't warming up before I got started. So a lot of the time, my earlier lines, they look a lot worse than the ones I did later. Like compare the top ones to some of the bottom ones. Now, the other reason, in my actual defense, was that I did these on a surface that was only mostly flat. So every once in a while, I'd be trying to make a line, and then I'd accidentally hit like a little crease on the table, and then that would add a little shake to it. And that always felt really bad because, it's in pen, there's no taking it back, and it's like, damn it, that one actually wasn't my fault. I swear, I was drawing from the shoulder and everything. Now, this is the point where I finally remembered, oh, right, I'm supposed to be warming up before I do all this stuff. So here's a page of me warming up with all kinds of old assignments. Moving forward, I'm not going to bother showing you my warm-ups because it's just me warming up. Like, there's not really anything to talk about. I'm just trying to awaken some muscle memory. But, I figured I'd show you this one because, unfortunately, it was the first time that I bothered doing it, so mark this moment. From this point on, I'm finally actually warming up before I do assignments. Okay, so this assignment took a long time to get through because there's only so much that I ever wanted to try and do in one sitting, and sometimes I just didn't have a lot of time to do too much more. Like, when you count it out, there are 49 boxes on this page. Each contain 12 lines. That is 588 lines to try and place just right. So, I would do sections at a time and then come back to it later. Now, I remember the homework assignment making clear that, this one was going to be a really hard assignment, and just, do the best that you can. Don't worry about it being perfect. But honestly, even though this one took me a long time to get through, it's one of the ones that I had the most fun doing. The idea behind this one is that you're trying to draw a box with the perspective rotating until you're all the way 90 degrees in each of the cardinal directions. Now, as my feedback pointed out, there are times where I haven't really given the box much or any rotation. It's basically just drawn as if it's farther away, but I didn't actually rotate it. So like these two boxes here, and the same two on this side. Like, the problem is that once you establish those two boxes looking like that, everything else, every other box that you place is based on how are the previous ones drawn. And so, because the other two were already drawn that way with this much rotation or lack thereof, I felt kind of stuck into making the rest fit that mold, so at least everything would look kind of even, at least to some degree. I remember when I was doing this assignment, I would stop seeing it as just a series of boxes, and instead I would see the face of a sphere, or, well, elongated sphere, but you get what I'm trying to say. My point being that anytime I was trying to figure out how to place the lines of the box, I would just imagine the wireframe of a sphere in any 3D modeling program. Instead of thinking about the box itself, I'd imagine the curve of that line and think through how that would apply to its relationship to other boxes I had already placed. While this one is a warm-up page in part, and I said I wasn't going to show you warm-ups anymore, there are at least a couple more sketches that I was doing for myself, so, here you go. I tried to see if I could make a cartoon face rotated from 3/4 perspective and looking straight at camera, because again, I always seem to take something from my assignments and apply it. Okay, I made a box rotate, can I make a face rotate? It was better than I expected it would turn out, but I've got some complaints. I was a little happier with the hand, since, like anyone who's ever tried to learn how to draw, hands are tough. I don't have much experience trying to draw them from this particular angle, so as you can see, I started by just drawing a box to line up with the palm, and then I added these little cheese puff doodads for the fingers, and they had a little rotation to them, and then I added these little humps and embellishments, and yeah, I was expecting this to turn out a lot worse than it did, but I don't really have any complaints. I like that hand. I feel a lot less fondly towards this weird little, timepiece eye patch that I tried to make. So the idea was, it was supposed to be kind of like a magic item where you'd set the time on the eyepiece, and then you'd wear this eye patch, and then you see out the lens, what it looked like in front of you at the time that you set. And, I like the concept, but I'm not so thrilled with how it looks. One thing I did like, though, is that, so Usually there's a stage early on in the drawing where like it just looks really plain and there's not a lot going on with it. It's just not very interesting to look at. And so I start adding in embellishments to keep it from looking, too boring. And in doing that, I came up with this sort of like hourglass shape in the center, and then I added in like pixelated sand, and I imagine it being like some kind of a time limit on like how long you could look through the eyepiece. And even though I don't really like how the thing looks as a whole, like I still really like the concept of having like digital falling sand on the front of it. Like conceptually, I like it a lot. All right, home stretch here. Here's the last assignment. Draw out a line in space and then use that to kind of guide a series of boxes from various perspectives, getting farther and farther away from the viewer. This one was sometimes pretty fun, but sometimes kind of just really frustrating. We had again been warned that this one was going to be a really difficult assignment, so just do it to the best of your current ability, don't worry about it being perfect. And I probably needed those words because there was a lot of times on this assignment where I felt like one of two things. Either I'm just imagining the same angle over and over again, even when that's demonstrably untrue. Or, oh my god, what a mess I just made. Like, what the hell is going on with this one? Can I legally call it a box at this point? It's pretty clear as you look over all of these that I still have a lot of work to do on constructing boxes that don't look just really funky. The more bad results I'd get, the more hesitant I'd get with my lines, which got me back into some bad habits like just drawing from my wrist instead of my shoulder, and going too slowly so my lines stopped getting as smooth. And anyway, the feedback that I got definitely noticed all of that, and the suggestion was that it's probably time for me to do the part of the course that it's most famous for, the 250 box challenge. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Draw 250 boxes, and then after you've done a handful of them, you check to see how closely they came to what they should be. How do all of the lines that are going in a certain direction converge towards the same point, or how close were they? How far were they? Where do you need to improve? Ideally, over the course of doing it, you learn from your mistakes and you get smoother and smoother and make boxes that look better and better. It is gonna be a bit of a grind, but I'm kind of looking forward to it because I was really, I was pretty disappointed with how that last assignment went. Like, I'd see my boxes and just be like, damn it, it felt like it should be more simple than it was. And I know that's not the case. I know that this is hard, it's a skill, and it takes time, but it's hard to get past that idea that, like, a box is, from one perspective, well, perspective is the problem, but from a certain point of view, a box is a really simple shape to draw. It's just a bunch of straight lines at 90-degree angles, and it's so easy to conceptualize. So why does it never come out the way it looks in my head? You know, like if this is what it takes to finally hone my skills and have good habits when it comes to placing lines to make boxes that actually look correctly, that, look a little bit more like this champion over here, then I'm down for the grind. But I might need a little bit of help. 250 boxes is a lot of boxes to draw. I mean, the idea is that you're doing 5 a page, and that's 50 pages of just drawings of boxes. That is going to be a lot to get through, and I figured maybe if I stream the process, if I have a live audience holding me accountable to it, maybe that'll help me get through the grind. So, if you follow my channel, twitch.tv/MidnightJester8, you may well see some of that coming up in the near future. Look, I'm not gonna pretend that watching me draw boxes over and over and over again from different angles is exactly gonna be the most exciting content. Honestly, I can't say that anybody in particular is gonna actually stick around to watch it, but, I'm gonna put on some chill music and I'm just gonna try and get it done. Not all at once, mind you. I don't even think that would be a good idea. I think the breaks are going to be important to actually get a chance to learn something and not just ingrain terrible boxes into your muscle memory as you just get more and more tired. But I feel like if I stream it, even if nobody's watching, it'll just help me keep going on for a little longer than I might otherwise do. But otherwise, that's been 1 month of Draw a Box. So far, I've been really enjoying the structure to it. I feel like I've learned a lot. The feedback I've gotten was quick, and it was detailed, and it was very helpful. I'm definitely going to continue using that in the future. My hope is that for this next video that I do, I'll have finished Lesson 2, but honestly, I'm kind of skeptical of that, especially if I'm starting out with the 250 box challenge and not knowing how long or involved the assignments of Lesson 2 are going to be. I don't know that I'm going to finish it in time for the next video, but I'm going to try and do the best I can. we'll just have to wait and see. As I said last time, I hope this video has been informative and just helped you set those expectations on, what could you theoretically accomplish in a month of this program. A lot of the learning is definitely a little bit subtle at this point, but it's there, and it's going to continue developing. But my question for you is, what have you been working on since the last video? Are you working on drawing like I am? Are you trying to learn something else? And if the answer is that you haven't been working on anything since the last video, I encourage you to try and find the time to change that answer by the time I make the next video. I know that time is precious, and I'm certainly somebody who never feels like I've got enough of it to be able to do all the things I want to do, but if you can carve out even 15 minutes a day to be able to work on something, it can honestly snowball into something pretty amazing over time. For me, it's also just been kind of a really good way to stop myself from just idly browsing my phone all day. Because I know that the longer I do that, the less time I have to work on Drawbox, and I don't feel like I have a lot of time anyway. So it's really helped me just be a little bit more productive with my day, and that alone has kind of been worth it. But regardless, if you're working on something, let me know what you're working on down in the comments. If you're not working on something, let me know what you'd like to be working on next. Doesn't matter to me. I just want to hear from you. Otherwise, I'll see you in a month, and hopefully then you'll see something that looks at least a little bit better than this.